Hello and welcome everybody to this month's edition of The Wellness Policy. My name is Wai Ting. We're back for another month, but it is a very special month and a very special episode because it's not just any other day, Jordan, not every other day that we get to celebrate, discuss, and admire our man, your man, everybody's man. It is Neal Flanagan's birthday. I know he's a guy who does not make a big deal out of it, but you know what? We're gonna take it upon ourselves to make it a huge celebration here on the Wellness Policy. Welcome, birthday boy Neal Flanagan.
Yay! I did have a little pull cord with lots of balloons and streamers and stuff, but it's malfunctioned, so it's just my usual decor. Thank you very much, guys. As Wai alluded to, I'm not the biggest birthday person, but it's always nice to be wished, Neal,
we're live right now.
So whatever that I know we are, I'm sorry.
He's at a loss for words, everybody. He's not used to this. Well, anyway, we're happy to celebrate it, and we're happy to just have an excuse to perhaps, get together and discuss. Jordan, first of all, how are you?
The COVID's getting better.
Really?
And yeah, for those, I guess, following the past 9 or 10 months of this show, you would be well aware of what I presume would be long COVID. After like 9 months, this like grip it had on me slowly letting go. I've had many days where I could breathe. It's a miracle. It's a Neal's birthday miracle, we could say.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that, of course. Do keep us updated, especially, if the news is positive, which we hope it will continue to be. But since it is our man's birthday, we have allowed him to suggest the topic for the month. And Neal, care to introduce exactly what we're here to talk about today?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to give a shout out to one of my friends from the Discord. That's Joycey, or Adam Joyce, who back in December, I have it in front of me, said, show topic idea, friendships. How, as we get older, do we create and maintain them? To which I replied, great idea. And to which Jordan replied, I'm so good at friendships, hands up emoji. So that's kind of our personalities in a nutshell. So the credit for the idea is really Adam's, and there he is. He's walked into the live chat just as his name was, he is manifested just as I mentioned his name. But yes, the choice was mine. I thought it's a great topic, and it's always topical for us.
God, jeez.
What that was, the joy of friendship.
This is a very professional, podcast network.
Well,
I don't know what you're doing there.
So I was late because I was just hanging in the YouTube room to somehow do this show. As Neal mentions, but is it Joycey or Joyce? Come on.
His nickname is Joycey, yeah.
Understood. So as you mentioned that, I was like,
his surname is Joyce.
We do have a YouTube room. There are people chatting live in it, youtube.com/post wrestling. I thought wait, you guys are going hard with these ads now. It's about time you got that
going
money.
hard with them. Yeah, I mean, come on. You think this stuff keeps itself open? I mean, yeah.
Well, clearly, when we brought Neal in, that kind of ballooned our wellness policy budget. But yes, this was an ad I needed to endure before chatting with our friends in the chat. Happy birthday, Neal, by the way.
Okay, so it was a YouTube ad. Yeah. Well, yes. Okay, so Adam Joyce, thank you so much for the topic suggestion. I think it's one that I certainly resonated with me. I'm a man, 38 right now, about to be 39, and I would say for the better part of like 10 years, more, 15 years even. It's been not as easy to make friends, as it was back when we were young. What are some of your immediate thoughts about the topic, Neal? I'm very curious.
Well, I guess I did a tiny bit of homework, not much. The bare minimum has always been the case with me as a student. But I came across a very interesting, I thought, study that came out quite recently called The State of American Friendship. And it was by the American Perspectives Survey. And I'm not going to blind everybody with tons of figures, but one thing that really stood out is a comparison between the state of American friendships in 1990 compared to June 2021, which is when this latest one was published. And there are a couple of stats that really stick out. And one of them, for example, is the number of people who said they had no close friends in 1990 was 3%. So a very tiny minority of people said they didn't have any close friends 30 years ago or so. That number these days is 12%, still quite small, but a fourfold increase, and getting sort of statistically significant. And this survey, it was of 2,000 odd people. The narrative around it really does dig into, here's maybe why. We just have to kind of guess at certain things. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that June 2021 was not a normal time, I think, to be asking people about relationships 18 months into the pandemic, if that, given that, well, yeah, it started in earnest, I guess, in the spring of 2021. So this is not much more than a year later than that. And I think all of our friendships and staying in touch and all of that was at least changed during that period. It also points to, in 30 years, of the gap between those figures, the way we behave, and I think this isn't just for Americans, it's really in the West in general, has changed. People are spending much more time in the parental home these days because it's much harder to get onto the property ladder or afford rent. People are their friendships are spread further apart because people are traveling more for work. 1990 doesn't feel that long ago to someone like me. I was a kid, but I still kind of remember the 90s pretty well. But yes, I mean, I can absolutely identify with it being a different time. Didn't really have to travel the country, looking for a job as much as people do these days and trying to forge a new group of friends everywhere you went. Not quite the 1950s where you got a job for life and had the same circle of friends and that forever, but there are demographic changes there for sure as well. So a long way of saying we can really only guess. I think there are some obvious things, but I think we can really only guess at some of the reasons for this. But one of the other things that stands out as you dig into it is that young men are more likely to feel lonely or dissatisfied with the number of friends that they have than women. With women, a majority are satisfied or very satisfied with the number of friends they have. It's into the mid-50s. It's not a gigantic majority. But with men, it's in the 40%. So it's less than half. So there's a difference there. And I'm going to rely, I think, on Jordan with his experience of dealing with clients. I know that because he has shared with me before that this is a topic that comes up again and again in some of his professional work as to, what people are telling him about the reasoning for this. But it's definitely a phenomenon. And one more thing before I pass the baton is just to say that on a personal level, and maybe we can come back around to this, I have found technology not a barrier to friendship, but a gateway to it. I've made tremendous, close, meaningful friendships through Discord, video chat, texting on that's sometimes more surface level thing, VoIP, all of those sorts of things that are open to us now that can bring us virtually together, even if we're on different continents. But on that, I think I've said enough for the time being. Jordan, what do you think?
So I work with all kinds of people in different ways, primarily now providing psychotherapy and career coaching. And the far majority of the people I work with currently are adult men. And most of them have reported to me feeling some sense of dissatisfaction or maybe a more pleasant way to put it, room to grow as it relates to their social lives and friendships in particular. In all kinds of different ways. So some of these people I work with have friends, but they're, I guess, in building relationship with me, having engagement with me, they're realizing different or new potential as far as it could be to relate to another guy, an adult guy. And they're realizing, oh, I have all these friends that I've known forever, but I really don't know that much about them. Like, I don't know how they're actually doing, or what their relationships are like, or what their dreams are, what their fears are, and so on. So I'm hearing a lot of that. We're talking now about just the level of depth or emotional engagement in a friendship. Also, I'm just hearing people don't have time, or at least they're reporting they don't have much time because they have work. They have their own spouses, children, for some hobbies, and they're saying, I don't know where to find the time or the energy, especially to go out and make a new friend. A lot of people don't know where to start to do that, and a lot of what I hear is they just don't know like how to do that, or have the confidence or the social skills to do it. So it's something that I'm engaging about almost daily in my professional life. But as I stated at, or kind of sketched out for us, we're kind of coming at it from all kinds of different angles. So when this came up as a topic of possibility for the show, I was all about it because I think we could do a whole series on friendship if we wanted to.
Mm-hmm. It's something I think I've just gradually, for me, realized, maybe without completely being aware that it was happening at the time. But I'm personally somebody who tends to form relationships through shared activity. And when you're in school, when you're at work, you are forced to, share activity. And through those tasks, you end up forming relationships. Since leaving school, and especially since leaving an office job, it's completely been very difficult. Now, I think a great exception has been forming friendships through this podcast, which I never really did a whole lot of before. I guess, creating online friends from across the world. It usually would be across the office. Now it's like, across the pond here, with Neil, and across borders with Jordan here. So I think things are kind of like, if not for the internet, I actually don't know if I would have any sort of new connection and new friendship without, doing something like that.
Do you think you'd have the desire though?
I'm sure I would. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just kind of human to, I am definitely somebody who is a bit more introverted and prefers his alone time. But I mean, even then you have limits. Like you need balance in life, and I very much value the close relationships that I have in my life. It's interesting when, Jordan, you say that people, at least, that your clients have, they know that they have friends, but like the depth of connection is something that they might not have realized that they needed more of until maybe speaking to, somebody like yourself. And yeah, like I tend to agree with that. We make a lot of connections and a lot of friendships, but I don't know. I don't know how often we really get into that space where we can kind of talk personally beyond, whether it be the shared activity or the shared hobby or the shared interest.
If I can stop you, Wai, I realize perhaps I'm an outlier, and go figure, I'm a fucking psychotherapist and work as a coach and an educator and things like that. So for me, this type of engagement has been super normalized, at least throughout my adult life. Like I have a lot of friends, and many of them are men, and most of those friendships, at least the ones I'm spending the most time with, we talk about our lives. But I guess for me, it's surprising to hear I never thought to ask how my friend was doing, or to get to know them a bit more personally. But yet it's so common. perhaps that feels like the norm in our cultures.
Yeah, I mean, asking how somebody's doing is pretty normal. But whether or not, that blossoms into something that's, a bit more genuine than I'm good, how are you? It
Right. Okay.
depends on.
So, I mean, how is someone actually doing? Not
Sure.
the exchange that you have with the barista.
Absolutely. Again, when you're trying to, have a conversation, it kind of, you kind of need the forum for it. You need the other participant to want to enter into that conversation. And I think you need a level of trust that the other person you're talking to is able to handle your feelings and understand your feelings. And the time allotted too. Like, a lot of interactions are just kind of fleeting and everybody has their own shit to do. But, I mean, hey, like, do you have any recommendations? Ultimately, are we kind of here to talk about what we can do to improve, to have more meaningful conversations?
Yeah, well, like what I found doing especially more individual therapy every day this past year or so, the thing I find myself saying the most with clients is fuck around and find out. Especially with these things that are newer for us. So, but what I'm hearing a lot from my clients is they either don't feel like they have anyone they can do it with, or yes, to your point, Wei, they're not sure how their friends will respond to it. So often so there's a lot of fear. There's a vulnerability involved of, especially if you've been friends with someone for decades and there are established norms in how you engage, and it would be kind of jarring to show up in a different way all of a sudden, to be like, hey, so tell me, like, what are your greatest fears, man? Like, or are you struggling? Like, so we don't need to like hit it over the head, but I think what can be helpful is to just tell the truth. Like, honestly, just to tell the truth. So maybe if you're with a friend and you feel comfortable saying, hey, I was chatting with my therapist and we were talking about the nature of my friendships, and not trying to do the thing, but just bringing it up as a topic. That could be one way in. You could just start like asking questions and not necessarily saying, this is what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to like deepen our emotional connection, but maybe just ask some more personal questions that aren't too intense, just to see the level of comfortability where someone's at. So I know for me, I have friends that these are decades long friendships, and I have developed in different ways than some of my friends have developed. Some of my friends I love and would like to maintain the friendship for life, but some of them aren't as interested as I am in becoming more personal or talking about emotional or personal stuff. So I just kind of poke. I'll open-ended question, and I'll see what they bring to the table and their level of comfortability. If I get the sense that like, all right, they've had their fill, or they want to keep it surface level, all right, I'll leave it alone. But if I'm having a desire for more, I always have the potential or the option to be like, hey man, like it's fun to bullshit and like talk about dicks or whatever, but like it would also be cool to know how you're feeling and like what's going on in life. So again, that's another version of just telling the truth of where you're at and what you might be interested in.
Neal, have you had sort of similar insight? How do you maintain some of these closer connections with your friends?
I can relate to what Jordan was saying. He's coming from his own perspective as someone who's a very sociable guy, as well as his professional, learnings and experience as well. So yeah, I mean, I get that you're in a particular space. But I can relate to that. I have some friends that I've had for a long time, decades in some cases, where the connective tissue of that friendship is really a shared interest in a particular sport or wrestling or a TV show or a TV franchise like Star Trek or something like that. And we are close and we are good friends and we catch up, but it doesn't go a lot deeper than that. And maybe that's where they're comfortable. And I think that's okay. I mean, I would imagine that the friends I really confide in and talk about feelings with or personal shit that's going on in life doesn't get beyond, the fingers of one hand. It's probably 3 or 4 people, maybe occasionally more than that. And also the phases of life that we go through is a big factor in all of this. As Jordan alluded to, and as you alluded to actually at the beginning, when you were having a shared experience in primary school when you're 5 or 6, that's a very different type of friendship. Kids are sort of hardwired to be social. They'll play together at break time in school, and they're sharing an experience, and they watch probably the same TV shows and things like that. But they're certainly not talking about their hopes and fears for the future and all of that kind of thing. I think that's something that comes along quite a lot later, late teens, 20s. For me, it was college years where you're flying the nest for the first time and trying to make it. Your family suddenly become your circle of friends rather than the people that you live with at home. And that's where things can deepen. And then again, those phases of life move on. You get your first job, maybe you move town, and friends kind of come and go, sometimes naturally and sometimes because they run. The unfortunate part of life too is that some friendships run their course, I feel. There's certainly people that in my past, I don't mean I've had a massive blow up and fallout and I never want to see you again. It's just that gradual kind of, you're taking different paths in life. I think it's as Jordan said, you could have a series on this. There's so many different aspects to it.
Yeah. I mean, I think I have a handful of friends that I will talk to on a deeper level, and I'm mostly satisfied with that number because I find it's kind of hard to maintain even some of those relationships for me right now at this stage of my life, because there's just not a lot of time to go around, but I think for everybody that's a little bit different. What do you think about that, Jordan? Does every relationship need to be, of a deeper level, or is there a benefit to having varying levels?
And that was one thing I wanted to mention because I probably shouldn't be feeling this way, but I was noticing I was feeling a bit defensive and wanting to make this clear. I have friendships or people I'm friendly with or acquaintances. And again, we can all have different definitions for what a friendship even means to us. But I have these social connections where a lot of these people I never really interact with one-on-one. So there always isn't, maybe a more appropriate time to become more personal in that way. But there's also people out in the world that I'm connected to that I have love for, that I enjoy seeing whenever I see them. And it's not like I wouldn't care to get more personal with them, but I'm fine not to. And it's great to just bullshit or to talk about shared interests or to be honest, fucking Eric Marcotte, every now and then I'll just call him up. He'll always answer. And I just start riffing. And sometimes for 45 minutes, I'll just riff and he'll follow. We basically say nothing. And then I say, okay, I got to go, and hang up. And I love that guy. But how much does he actually know about me? I don't know. How much do I actually know about him? I don't know, but I consider him a friend, and a friend that I really enjoy interacting with. And so I think a couple of things are important. Balance, for sure. If I was only pulling at the end of, I want to have intense conversations and I want to talk about genuine stuff with everyone, that would be really, really boring for me. And potentially an issue that I should perhaps look at. I try to pull at the opposite end of being lighthearted and having fun and not making everything so serious. And I think for my own self-awareness, I think for better or worse, I'm really effective at pulling hard at both of those ends. And that works for me. The punchline typically is self-awareness of what works for you. Some people, they may just want 2 really close friends. Other people may want like 15 friends because they always want options for stuff to do on the weekends, especially if someone's single. So it's really, I think the point of a conversation like this is to bring the topic more generally to the surface of the community of viewers and listeners, and to maybe help us all become a bit more intentional about how are these things playing out in my life, and do I want more, or do I feel good about what's going on? And if so, like, good on you. I just know for me, socialization and friendships has always been really important to me. Just this, even more generally, the sense of connection has been a really core value of mine. And so throughout my life, I've invested a lot of energy and intention into continuing to attract new and develop and maintain ongoing friendships.
I'm very curious, in your sort of romantic relationships, does entering a romantic relationship affect your platonic friendships? And because for me, like, obviously the person I talk to the most is my partner, and I would consider the closest friend that I have to be my partner. Is that okay? Like, is that healthy, or should we not be relying, I think, so much of our sort of socialization on one source?
So Neal, when we started dating, do you feel like I changed?
Yeah, you changed, man. Well, it's funny. We're all coming from three different aspects here. In a way, I'm single and have been for a while. Jordan's attached, but doesn't have kids. And Wai, you're married, and you've got Oscar, who's now 6 months old. And congrats to the wee man, as we would say over here on that. I saw a fantastic
Not
picture.
so wee anymore. He's
yeah,
he's getting up there in pounds. So yeah.
So I'm guessing we all have different pools on our time as well as our emotional
Capacity.
connections
Yeah.
and capacity. I am aware, for example, that I've got more free time than most of my peers who are married with children. And I feel that it's fair, therefore, for me to take the reins sometimes on trying to organize a get together or try to coordinate when we might be able to get together, because I know what it's like. Both my brothers have kids, and it's full-time jobs. It's a big drain on their time. I have a little more free time, so I think we all have different roles, and that's where, and there, as Jordan has touched on, different kinds of friendship. I've been privy to one of those Eric Marcotte calls. He and I were, Jordan that is, and I were on a call, and he just on a whim, we mentioned Eric in a positive way, and Jordan decided to bring him in, and it was just half an hour of nonsense, but very good fun, so I don't know. I'm straying from your point. And
well, let me just
Jordan
say, Neal, as somebody who I think very much relies on people like you to take the first step in initiating, I'm incredibly grateful. I mean, I have relationships where, like, I have friends that have kids, and everybody just kind of like, nobody really takes the first step, and nobody really makes the effort because everybody kind of is busy with something else, and at that point you really kind of have to, you need that instigator to at least want to maintain these relationships. So I just wanted to say, like, it's great that you're feeling that way, and I would be appreciative if I was your friend, which I am, but
Thank you.
You know what I mean.
And I feel very much the same way about Jordan too, who really always goes the extra mile. It feels to me, to kind of. He spoke about the importance of maintaining friendships, and he does that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I've. By the way, I'm just staring at the screen, like you guys wearing the same hat. It's brilliant.
We really should have coordinated with you, Jordan. We should have sent you the same hat.
Yeah. Well.
Where'd you get yours,
my
Neal?
birthday.
Where'd you get yours, Neal? I got mine at Uniqlo. Where'd you get yours?
I can't remember. It was mail order from one of these sort of it's like a proper yacht wear type place.
Yacht wear, okay.
So I really Yeah, I
Okay,
should
yours
really be
is in the mail,
sailing or
Jordan.
something.
You have a hat
Okay,
back
you-
there. You have a couple hats back there, don't you, Jordan?
Oh, I have a post wrestling hat even.
Okay.
I'm not
So
really.
not the
Can
same.
you picture me in a hat though?
Well, let's see it.
Beanie,
Put it
All right,
on.
hold on.
not a cap.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen Jordan Goodman in a hat. This is an exclusive here for our video patrons, and we will do our best to describe it in audio form for people that
Okay.
are just listening. Jordan has grabbed a hat from the back of his room. He's putting his earbuds back on, and we're about to see what Jordan looks like with a hat.
Oh yes, we have podcast listeners.
the
We're so
first
grateful for your listenership. So yeah, but you guys know I'm more of a headband and a beanie guy, or this. I always, I've got this tiger hat.
Yeah.
if we could call it that.
You're a rare headband guy.
So okay, here's what I look like in this post hat. I look like a fucking clown. Come on now. Do I tip it up? Usually, okay. I'm trying. If I've worn this out in public before.
Yeah.
I think I would tip it up.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I got to get used to it.
Yeah,
I don't love it.
I don't love it either.
If I met you-
What about the? No, I look
think
like a
it's-
child.
I think
No,
you got to tighten.
Stop it, Jordan.
You got to
Yeah, that's-
tighten the strap. I think it's on. It's too loose right now.
now. Okay. All
It's
right.
too
Let's see
loose.
here.
You got to tighten the
Take
circumference.
the headband off. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Let's
This
see.
is riveting television.
Okay. You got the hair sticking out of the bottom.
Is that good though, or is that
What does he look
bad?
like? I don't know.
You
You
look
look
like-
like,
Well,
New Kids on the
a
Block. member,
teenager.
maybe. Who does he look
Alright.
like from New Kids on the Block? He looks like one of those guys.
Well, if you guys want to go back,
too much.
let's see here.
Like you look like one of these dudes, like 100%. Here, let me see.
Well, there is a Jordan in New Kids on the Block.
Yeah, you might look like Jordan
Look,
from.
I think that's what I would do. I wouldn't do like that. I would. This is like John Cena.
not a good
That's a John Cena fit.
I
Like
see
more.
you more
I'd
as
go
a
up.
curved hat kid. You know, like
Like I would curve this or more of a dad
brim.
hat.
like brimmed hat. Yeah.
Oh, what about this? Is Lily's.
Yeah.
What about this bucket hat? I never tried this. This looks stupid too. I look like a.
Which one does he look like? You look like all of them almost. You look like a combination of all of them mixed in.
I don't look like the guy with the actual headband. Ironically,
That's Donnie. You've interviewed
No.
him. You spoke.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
your
A
friend.
great guy. So for those that don't know, I used to have a podcast with our last guest, Matt Halpern, called Chocolate Croissants. Essentially, was the wellness policy for a rock music audience. We interviewed Donnie Wahlberg, and I never mentioned the fact that he was a guest on WrestleMania, and his wife Jenny McCarthy was also a guest on WrestleMania. I couldn't believe I just like I
I don't think
I
I,
didn't
knew
do
that he was
that.
married to Jenny McCarthy. That's incredible. Wow.
yeah.
Well,
Anyway, this show has gone off the rails, but I like it actually. This is more fun.
we're exercising friendship, are we not? Is this not all in
Indeed.
the name of friendship here? Yeah. At this point, chat room. Do you have
Chat
anything
room.
to say?
Which style of hat works best for me?
Yeah.
This
Which
is what Steve Grows Weed wants to chime in on. I'm sure.
Lily's was probably the best there. I think. I don't think any of those cap techniques were really working for you, Jordan. But it was a shock to the system because I've not seen that before.
I think
As
it
a
just takes some
kid-
getting used to, you know.
As a kid, I was like that asshole with the Dickie shorts and the cap like backwards but sideways. If we remember, a very
Nice.
like Tom DeLonge type style.
Backwards, sideways. Wow. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That I could see. Well, you could bring
Yeah.
that back. You know, you just be you. Whatever makes you comfortable, I think, is all that matters. What makes you comfortable, chat room? What hats do you prefer? And how have you navigated friendships in your adult life? We have left the StreamYard link right there in the Zoom chat. It's also in the show description. If you care to call in, video or non-video, we just want to hear your voice and hear your thoughts about what is about this topic.
If we're waiting for anyone to come in, I will say that once I started dating Lily a few years ago, my social life really didn't change. Now, what was different was that her and I met during a pandemic and during the first year of it. So I was relatively responsible. I was not trying to hang with people in person. If anything, that was one of the gifts of this pandemic, was that I befriended all of you guys, and many other people through this community, just because I was spending so much of my time, especially socially, on the internet. But I know what it's like well over a decade ago to be in a romantic relationship where my partner was certainly not into the idea of me maintaining friendships with other girls. And she also was very into the idea of me being around much of the time, or even if I was out in the world, I always felt this expectation or pressure to like continuously check in. I'm not in that relationship anymore. And the relationship I'm in now, Lily's wonderful in that she very much encourages me to have a life outside of my romantic relationship. I'm far more social, especially out in the world, than she is. And so like she's happy to hang at home while I'm out engaging in the world, or she's doing whatever she wants to be doing. I'm doing whatever I want to be doing. And I think that's one of the key things that makes it a really solid relationship for me.
That's wonderful. Shout out Lily in the chat room.
Yay. Love Lily. I noticed something that in the chat room, Adam mentioned that he said he's fine since having a child, which I know wasn't in the distant past, Millie, that he's making stronger bonds with people he wouldn't have considered close friends prior, as we talk dad stuff now. And I think that speaks to, I mean, obviously becoming a father, I can't relate to that, but that's a change, not just in your life circumstance, it's a change in your whole identity, I guess. But it speaks to a larger truth, I think, which is that when you have a common frame of reference, your friendships are going to be deeper. And I suppose the good news for anyone feeling a little lonely who's listening or watching this is that you're in a community already, you know, the post wrestling community. You're going to be a wrestling fan probably. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, you're more than likely a patron as well. So you're probably fairly hardcore. And there are avenues there for at least making connections, whether it's through our Discord channel or people that you recognize on Twitter and things like that. I feel we haven't really gone into that area of loneliness where people are saying that, you know, they don't have close friends. And I would say, just from life experience, one of the best ways to connect with people is probably shared interests. And that could be online. It could be in real life, you know, joining societies and communities that are just stuff that you're really into. And if
I thought
sometimes
jiu-jitsu for me,
the better.
I thought like an exercise program, like going to jiu-jitsu was incredible for the community. I mean, we spoke, you know, a little bit, you know, last month. But yeah, like shared activity, it's almost like you're going through to a job, or you're going to a club where everybody kind of has the same focus, and you see them at a regular interval, and you're doing something very difficult with each other. You're growing with the other person at the same time. So I highly recommend the community aspect of any sort of organized sport, if you find one that you happen to like.
Yeah, and I guess here we're getting more into tactical advice, which is super important, because again, I work with a lot of people and they're like, I don't know where to start. Well, what do you like? I know for me, I've always loved music and pro wrestling. Now, as a kid, it was harder to meet new people through pro wrestling because the internet was super basic. And Maryland actually has a pretty thriving independent local scene. But to be honest, I'd be going to those shows and I'm not looking at a bunch of potential like new friends as a 14-year-old at these local indie shows. But concerts, that was it for me. So going to shows, like I always felt more comfortable, especially as a kid or even a younger adult, at a concert relative to being at just a bar, let's say. Because at a bar, for me, I'd feel a lot more friction around just chatting a stranger up. If I'm at a concert, I know at a minimum that we likely enjoy the same band that's performing, or at least the style of music. So I always found being at concerts, at least for me, it was much easier to meet new people because they felt like my people. Like they felt like they were part of my tribe, given that we were all into the same style of music. So I know some of the people I work with, they're going to D&D games, for instance, and that is a way, you know, they're into that culture or the game more specifically, but also they're not feeling the pressure of, okay, now what do I say in a conversation? So there is an activity that binds the experience, not unlike a sport, for instance. But not everyone cares to be athletic, or if they're doing that, then maybe people get in their head about the performative aspect of it. But I don't know. So Wei, you were saying if you didn't have the internet, it would be harder. But you still desire friendship. So what do you think you would do? Like now?
Yeah, if there was no internet.
Yeah.
I think I would probably make a stronger effort to reconnect with the friends that I already had, you know, that I met through school and that I've stayed into loose contact with. Although I don't even know how I would stay in contact with those friends.
Okay.
With the internet.
So all right. Well, so for this thought exercise, because I'm sure there are people listening or watching that are thinking like, I would like to be more social, but I don't know where to start. So the internet exists, but you don't have this platform to befriend other wrestling podcasters. So maybe you would be using the internet. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I would make a stronger effort to, again, reconnect with the friends that I've already known, either through school, through work. And that, you know, might be enough for, like, I think me. But if that was unsuccessful, I don't know. I just don't really see myself like going out and, like, you know, with the intent of making friends. I tend to, I don't know how many people do. I think most people just end up going about their lives, and, you know, if they happen to interact with somebody that they like, they might continue talking to them, and that turns into a friendship.
But you don't think it would make sense to treat it like dating? I mean, so people might be more intentional about dating.
Sure, because I feel like that's a lot more difficult to just kind of come by without that intention, you know? A friendship, I think you can make just through regular interaction, you know, just an interesting conversation. And you can find that with dating as well, but I at least for me, that was never really the case.
Right, and I'm not even suggesting, although people do this, there's nothing wrong with it, but I'm not even suggesting going out and then just even you're meeting people.
Who wants to be my friend?
Exactly. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong. All right, you move to a new neighborhood, go to the coffee shop, you know, chatting up the barista and say, hey, I just moved to the neighborhood. Like, I'm looking for new friends. And then someone like that, or if you're into alcohol at a bar, or a bookstore, not unlike, hey, I'm single and I'm moved here and I'm looking, like, do you know anyone? Like, here's what I'm into. Like, my point is just intentionality around this stuff. Yes, we still want things to develop naturally. We don't want to necessarily force this stuff, but there's a difference between dumb luck and being a bit more intentional about what we want, and then engaging in behaviors that, like, help lead us toward that.
Totally.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that, you know, it can feel a bit weird, you know, comparing the pursuit of friends to the pursuit of a romantic relationship, but there are definitely parallels. And I think, you know, oftentimes we feel a kind of, you know, that almost indefinable click, you know, you click with someone, that X factor, you know, that, or you have a very good idea that you'll get along very well as friends. And sometimes it's on one person to kind of, I'm reluctant to use the word just to not weird people out, but, like, you know, courting, you know, is sort of
dude, I courted Wai, and Neal, you courted me. And really it comes down to like who's the one that goes first. And so again, it wasn't it was with Wai, it wasn't like, oh, I'm desperate for Wai to be my friend and I'll stop at nothing. It was more I like him. I think we have a lot in common. I think he might be a cool friend. So let me put some energy into connecting with him. And then, like a first date, let's see if I would even want to be friends with him from there.
Sure.
How did you feel about that way?
What
was your?
I definitely felt the courting energy, if that makes sense. And ultimately,
Nice.
I appreciate it, because like we end up like I think actually like being compatible. It sounds so weird to say, but that it's beneficial to me to have my relationship with Jordan and my relationship with you, Neal, and my relationship with several other people I've met through the Post Wrestling Network. So I welcome it, and I think it does take a bit of effort. It takes openness. It takes some reciprocation. And maybe that's another part of it too. Is just like how open is somebody? How open are we to accepting new relationships and new friendships in our lives? Because I think some of us might just shut the door on like somebody trying to make that effort because it's unusual maybe these days to have somebody try to push that way if it's not organically or if there's no reason to talk to somebody. But yeah, like and that might even be fine. Like again, that's totally dependent on how adequate you feel about your current situation.
But Jordan's 100% correct. I mean, I did intentionally kind of pursue a friendship with him, and to a degree with you as well, where, sort of, just trying to open up lines of communication, whether it's text or whatever, and see, is this going to be a listener chatting to the host of a show and, on that level, or is there something more? There are parallels to dating. It is a weird sort of comparison, but it's a true one. And I guess the older you get, the more meaningful you want your close friendships to be, rather than just small talk, or as Jordan said earlier, the sort of conversations you could have with a cab driver or a barista, just something a little deeper than that.
Small talk's good too, depending on the interest. Like some of my friends aren't necessarily interested in the things that I'm in, and I have my sort of circle of friends that I just like to talk to about that, and I'm very happy with those relationships.
Me too. Most of my local friends have no interest whatsoever in wrestling, none. So they still think it's kind of weird, and I still have to go through the argument of why it's actually one of the best forms of entertainment and why, etc.
It is weird though. Like
weird.
Wrestling is weird as hell. I mean, it's one of the weirdest things that exists. Like bodybuilders acting, and I cry watching it. It's like it's the weirdest thing, but that's why it's so awesome, isn't it?
Oh, so talk like to kind of connect the dots here. I still hear sometimes it's more rare, but I still hear people like as closeted wrestling fans. Yeah. And then it's like this thing where you're out and then you find out someone else likes wrestling too, and then you get all excited because then you can like express more of that part of yourself. And we're talking about friendships here, so it's kind of friendships we don't. We choose them. It's not like family. So we want to feel most like ourselves in a friendship. So my question to both of you, I'll start with you, Wai. Growing up, did you connect with others through wrestling? And was your fandom something that you felt like you needed to not reveal at times?
I did connect with others through wrestling. But it's interesting in that like I was already friends with these people, and then we all mutually discovered that we all watched wrestling or had some knowledge of it, and we all knew who Razor Ramon was, and we all loved Razor Ramon. And then as I got into my older years, I kind of stepped out of pro wrestling during the Attitude Era while everybody else did. So I think it was more so like, oh, what's everybody talking about? About this thing that I used to like. And then I kind of got into it that way. But again, these were friendships that I think had already existed that were probably maybe deepened, through a shared love of this thing. I, I guess like it wasn't really until like maybe like Pollock actually, that was like one of my first like exclusive friends that I met through our connection to pro wrestling. So I think there's that, but I never felt the need to, hide it. Like I maybe I'm a little bit unusual in that like I'm not like self-conscious about my hobbies or loves at all. I don't mind being weird. It's something I'm proud of actually.
Awesome.
How about you, Neil?
Yes, it was definitely something that connected us as friends at school age. Really pre-Attitude Era, which was sort of the Superstars and Wrestling Challenge on Saturday mornings. Nearly all of my friends, watched that, and then I stuck with it. Where I guess it's the same as Way. These were people I was friendly with anyway at school, and most of my friends were also my schoolmates. Where things changed was really later teens and university, where they had mostly left that in the past and were more interested in, proper sports, I suppose, if you want to put it that way. I might get some flack for saying that, but football or whatever, rugby. Whereas I was still keeping me up with Raw. I may not have been staying up every Monday night to watch it live, but I was certainly VCRing it at that point and making sure I kept up with the product. So it's never been the basis of a friendship until probably more recently. When I was in preteens and teenage years, it was an add-on or something, something that we could rally around as friends, talk about, fantasy book, laugh at, all of those sorts of things. But I don't think I'd made friends through wrestling until much, much later.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Many of my friendships were based more on music. Like that was the thing. Like if they weren't into the music, then I probably would not have been, I've especially like high school, college, I just see a guy, one of my best friends, I walk by him. He's in a Glassjaw hoodie. I just point, I say Glassjaw, and now 20 years later, we're still dear friends. So that was often the connection point. I don't know if I would walk by someone with a Bullet Club shirt. I would throw up a Too Sweet perhaps, but I don't know if I'm gonna like befriend them necessarily.
Why not?
I know somebody who wouldn't, who's also in this conversation. Form a friendship on the basis of a Too Sweet. Am I right?
If they were my best friend, I would never Too Sweet anybody. No.
So
why wouldn't you, Jordan?
That's a good question. So what's interesting, the difference between wrestling is such a small world, and what I mean by that is like compared to music, there are tens of thousands of like professional bands, probably more. So I think bands niche down in a way. So at the time when I saw someone in a Glassjaw hoodie, at the time that was pretty specific about, all right, I feel like I would vibe with this person.
Through their Glassjaw interests, you can branch out and assume a lot about how that person got to Glassjaw.
500 people at a Glassjaw show, I'd imagine, are going to have much more in common than a random sample of 500 people at a pro wrestling show. And that's also one of the
Kids on the Block show.
Absolutely. Well, I haven't seen it live. I wouldn't, shit on it though. It's probably an incredible experience. And Jordan Knight, he had that solo career, like TRL era, and he kind of tried to make it happen.
He was the Beyonce of the group, I think.
I think that's very generous way. That's beyond generous. No, it's tough, when you're trying to compete with,
can you name all of them?
No, because I'm too young for that, to be honest. I could probably name most, or if not all, of like NSYNC, but I was kind of too young for New Kids on the Block.
Me too.
Two of them are brothers. I'm right. Isn't there another Knight? Is Jordan and
Kevin probably is one.
There's always a Kevin in these white boy bands.
Is there like a Brian?
The chat room is not coming to the rescue on this one.
That's fine. That's fine. I once did a report and like a poster presentation on NSYNC.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just totally cut off your point. You were making a very deep.
One of the beautiful things about pro wrestling is that it attracts such a broad audience. No matter how we break it down, whether it's age or education, ethnicity, language, even when it's social status.
Okay, music does the same, right? And maybe the sort of the problem with this comparison is that, I mean, at this point, a Bullet Club shirt is basically a Metallica shirt. Yes, you might kind of have to navigate maybe a bit deeper into the iceberg to even get to Metallica. But at this point, I don't know. Whereas, like, let's say, I don't know if it was like an somebody more obscure, like, I don't know, like an Effie shirt or something like that. Would you, or like, would you?
If I saw someone with an Effie shirt, I would be infinitely more interested in going up and engaging with that person versus someone in a Roman Reigns shirt, because someone in a Roman Reigns shirt could mean 10,000 different things.
Right. Interesting. So
I was going to say something nasty, but I won't.
Hey,
no, I agree. Those
Neil, it's your
WWE
birthday. Come on, man.
Universally terrible. So I don't possess any of them, But yeah, a Sami Zayn shirt versus a Generico shirt, the more niche you get, you're right. I think the more interest there would be in, the more hardcore of a fan they are, the more beyond just the one product they go.
But is it wrong of us to make so many assumptions on somebody based off of the T-shirt that they're wearing?
No, because we need to make judgments in order to navigate life. So could we, if we make a judgment like that, could we like cut ourselves off from like connection and opportunity? Of course. So it depends on what we're looking for, but I think
it also depends on the situation, Jordan. Because I once had a Facebook Marketplace sale that I bought something off of somebody from Facebook Marketplace, and when I saw them, they had a New Day shirt on. And in that context, I was not expecting to meet a wrestling fan. And I ended up having a big conversation with them just over, talking about the New Day. Like, we didn't get into anything deeper than sort of like WWE main roster stuff. But nonetheless, I think it depends on the context.
Right, you're already engaging with them. So I'm thinking more of like, you're just out in public and you see someone in a New Day shirt. Are you going to go out of your way to go chat them up? Maybe not as much as someone in an Effie shirt.
What if you were in like, a very remote part of the world? What if you were in the Antarctic, okay, and there are 5 people there, and one person was wearing a Roman Reigns shirt? You might want to talk to them.
Well, yes, because context is everything in this situation. So yes, the Roman Reigns shirt wearer would likely be the first person that I would engage with if I'm in a room with 5 people. Yes. So, funny enough, I was just in a Disney World and Universal Orlando. I saw, I think, 3 Roman Reigns shirts and 1 WWE like title belt looking fanny pack, and that was the extent of. It was all Roman Reigns.
That's
Very
awesome.
impressive.
I mean, I'm very close to buying a Roman Reigns shirt at this point. You know that guy's awesome. Hey, this person has been waiting very long here ever since we asked for calls and ended up talking for 30 minutes ourselves. So, thank you, Hansi, for being on the line for so long. Hansi, very curious to hear your thoughts on this topic.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yep. What's up, Hansi?
Oh, what's going on? No, I won't be that long. What's it called?
Take all the time you need, Hansi.
No, it's all well. I mean, I don't. I mean, technically, I mean, I have friends, but I technically don't because like I don't really, like I don't really see them as often because I'm more like doing my own thing at least because like, even when I was like a kid, like I struggled because I never knew how to adapt to being like mean that I was like for example, like, I didn't know any like very horrible like swear words or slurs or anything like that. And I just noticed that like if you're too especially in the era that we grew up in, if you were like too much of a goody two shoe and you weren't like doing low brow fighting, like when you get into an argument, people would go, "Oh my God, this guy is like not a good." Like if you showed respect to women also at the same time, people would call you like kind of a loser or whatever. So then I completely embraced an edgelord behavior, and I did become pretty fucking popular in a sense. And then and the thing is like but I never really felt that, and I felt like over time more people were leaning towards becoming more like regular fucking people, and I never adapted to that where I became more like fucked up in the head because of that, and also because the Stern Show thing kind of amplified me being a character in my life where I became more unbearable. And then when like the whole Stern Show thing fucking came or like around whatever, I just noticed that people around me like, started changing as well because like I guess like they're mad that I was getting the attention from that, and I just felt since then like it became like very hard to keep friends where like I just recognize my own mental illness. And even though like I find communities here and there to interact with and I'll have a good interaction with, I now like don't become overbearing like I used to with like I do on my own terms, like in my own privately, but I don't become like overbearing where I'm like constantly asking where everyone is, what the plan is, and all that kind of stuff. I just assume that like a lot of people don't want to really talk to me as much, and I understand that because I'm not like the most mentally stable guy, whatever, and all that. But I gotta say, since like the whole quote unquote fame game thing that has happened to me, it's kind of like suffered because it also exposed like how manipulative other people can be in my personal opinion, and it kind of scares me. Where I never thought 20 years ago, I never thought that I was gonna be alive this long, like not in any morbid kind of a way. I just thought that there's no way someone like me who's a dumbed down guy can last because I didn't know how to act. I had to adapt to what I saw on television or how other people acted, basically. You know what I mean? I never really knew I never understood the underwritten rules and how to be social and all that kind of stuff, if that makes sense.
It does completely, because how else do any of us learn how to be social? It's through modeling and experience. So that's why I was saying that a lot of the people that I work with in therapy, they are learning new potentials, just like I did with the therapist I worked with. I realized, oh, this is what it can be like to relate to a man that's much older than me, because I was engaging with him in ways in which other older men hadn't engaged with me. And so when I start seeing new potentials, then it's like, oh, okay, this is what it can be like to be in a relationship or to have a friendship or a romantic relationship with other people. I think another important thing, and thanks for sharing, Hansi, I think another important thing you highlighted is this idea of how comfortable are we with ourselves first? Because a lot of people, in order to win over friends or win over a romantic interest, tries to be what they think the other person wants them to be or wants you to be. So we may talk in a certain way or dress in a certain way or present ourselves in ways that may not be that consistent with who we actually are. I don't know how sustainable relationships like those can be. So I often say inside game first. The relationship that we have with ourself is the foundational one. And I think the more that we have a level of self-respect and just a comfortability with self and all that, that's really going to dictate what kinds of connections we have in life. If we have to like change to please other people, is it worth it? I'm not so sure.
Mm-hmm. Hansi, you might have gotten disconnected partway through there, but I don't know if you heard Jordan's full response.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I didn't when I was looking at the comments, I pressed X on an accident and it took me out of the chat room. So I apologize. But Jordan, what you're saying, like, you know, like, dude, whatever I call in, like, you guys always give me, good insight and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes I hesitate to even maybe call. Like, I know you guys are always gonna say, hey man, you're being fine here. It just my self-conscious thing is that I always worry between every interaction because I don't know how everyone is gonna like react to something that I say, and I don't know if like I'm just going completely insane and all that kind of stuff. But like it just the best way to describe me is like a very like I grew up a very dumbed down guy that just went along with whatever was going on and all that, right? So it's become harder for me to like. That's why it's harder for me to trust some people because I feel like I made the mistake before by trusting and going blindly with other mentality or ideology or just friendships that have always backfired. So then I get kind of scared and I put a guard up, and then sometimes I push people away, which is why I sometimes I'm afraid to get into a relationship because I know that I wouldn't want to put my mental illness on someone else who's already dealing with it. So I try to my best to like, I don't know, stay away. I don't know how long that can last though, but I appreciate you guys taking my my call and everything. That I just sometimes I don't know who to vent to, and this is like the perfect community where we're talking about like mentally ill stuff and all that kind of stuff. So I thank you guys for allowing me, and I'll see you guys in Montreal, man. So
Yeah.
peace out, guys.
Hold on. You don't have to hang up just right away.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, man.
Well, I'm just curious, Hansi. Like I first of all, I so appreciate you having so much. Like, I think you're one of the most courageous people like that I know because you open yourself up like this every single week on every time we ask for calls. Whether it be about your wrestling opinions, which I really respect, or something like this. So I think that's to be commended. I can't do it. But like, have you sought a therapist? Because I feel like three guys, and Jordan obviously is one, but I also wonder if something a bit more dedicated is would be beneficial for you.
Well, I did have a therapist for a couple of years. But like ever since the pandemic, it closed down. So like I've been meaning to get back into it again. But like I was going, but like it wasn't like as much. Like it was like a free kind of like as much as I can afford right now kind of thing, right? Where like I'll do it like maybe like once like every 2 weeks to go and vent whatever. And then since like I started using my own little podcast, I kind of do even though it might not be pretty, it might not be for everyone. It's my best way of like getting out the poison and the irrational thoughts out of my head. Because sometimes if something goes like I recognize my patterns whenever I go irrational. Because once I go irrational, I start recognizing that I'll start like accumulating past stuff that happened to me, and then I'll automatically it's like I'm Doctor Strange. I'm envisioning future scenarios where I'm playing it out, and I'm like actually in the scenario, and then after I'm done with the scenario, it feels like I actually experienced it, and I get even more pissed off. So that I envision the worst, and I get afraid when my irrationality goes to a level because and then when the come down happens. The come down is like me reflecting on the irrationality of where I went. So to me, I scare myself a little bit with my mental illness because something I can't control like my irrational thoughts, because sometimes I want to go off on everybody. But I know that's not really healthy, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So if anyone out there is feeling mentally ill and you feel you'll be irrational, the best way I can, navigate is by journaling my irrational thoughts or just expressing it and getting ahead before it gets really, really bad. And I take it for granted, basically. That's why I gotta watch my social interactions, because too much interaction, it gets into my head for the next couple of days, and I don't like being in that mind space, if that makes sense.
Completely. Yeah, completely makes sense.
Yeah, I don't want to hog any more time. I know there's probably more callers, so I appreciate you guys even like having this conversation with me, man. I really do feel better whenever I have this conversation with you guys, because you guys are like, doing building blocks, you know what I mean? And I aspire to like at least have what your happiness is, you know what I mean? Because I wish I could be as happy as you guys. I know you guys struggle as well and all that, but I really do appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Hansi. And I trust that you sharing your story, there are people listening or watching that resonate in some way who, for whatever reason, don't feel the level of permission or comfortability you do to actually express yourself here publicly. And by you sharing your story, it affirms their experience. I would expect in meaningful ways. So respect to you for that, dude.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. It's the highest compliment. And yeah, shout out to Neal. I know you're saying much, Neal, but shout out to you, bro. You've been an awesome addition to the show as well, bro. I'm glad they brought you on the panel as well permanently, man. Because you're a good dude, bro. So yeah, I hope everything's well with you guys. And I'll leave you guys alone. I gotta go get ready to watch Ant-Man soon. So I'll call to that show, man, when you do a review on that one too. So I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.
We look forward to it. Thank you as always.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Hansi. I now freeze for 10 seconds anytime anyone says anything nice to me. That's what happens, or at least tonight. So, but I think another point that's sort of adjacent to what Hansi said there is, the forum in which you express yourself is very important as well. In the wrestling space, for example, I've seen some of the comments in the live chat where they're talking about and this is, I mean, it's not a reflection on the owners, for want of a better word of it, but the board on the Observer site can get very argumentative. The r/squared circle on Reddit as well. I think picking and choosing your communities as well, even within the wrestling space. And I'm biased. I will say that I think that the Discord and I had to take slightly less to do with it, but the forum on the post wrestling side is way orders of magnitude more welcoming and civil than some of the other wrestling discourse out there. Twitter's another one where it can get incredibly toxic. So, if you're getting flack, then my advice is just disconnect from those sorts of communities, because you're not getting anywhere. So yes, another blatant plug for the post wrestling Discord, which is a nice place to be for the most part. And when it isn't, we get rid of the people who aren't really, usually without much ceremony. There's a hammer comes down.
The ban button is always on standby here. Hey, let's go over to Steve Grows. Period. Just Steve Grows. You're muted right now.
There we go.
Hey, Steve. Welcome back to the show.
How's it going, guys? All right, we're gonna start here. Danny, Donnie, Joey, Jordan, and the other guy. I don't know.
Oh man, who's the other guy? Now we
the
need
other
to go.
guy. That guy.
Joey,
and Jordan,
Mark,
Jordan,
Is there a Mark?
and Danny had a baby.
Jordan and Danny had a baby. Who?
If Jordan and Danny had a baby, it would be Jordan Goodman.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe it's the hair shape.
What's
Guys,
Danny's last name?
I have no idea.
Wahlberg, right?
No,
No, it's
Donnie.
Donnie.
Oh, Donnie. Oh, Donnie and a Danny. That's confusing.
Joey's the young kid. Jordan's the guy in the red.
Yeah.
Danny's the old guy in the back. and then the other guy is a tall
Who's
dude.
the old guy? What the other? You mean
Danny.
the,
He
The old
looks
guy?
so he's like the 40-year-old guy in New Kids on the Block. Come on.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
his hair is most like Jordan's. I feel there's a wee bit of curl to it.
Yeah.
Steve, Steve, I'm not revealing your age. We all know you're our token grandfather of the community. So, like, were you peak age for New Kids on the Block, or were you already
My
like?
sister was. So I had to hear that shit.
When you were, like, what year was it when you were 10? Let's say.
Would have been 87.
Oh, so that was perfect timing for that.
Yeah, I remember honestly. I'll be quite like when the first video came, and it was like that. Oh, right. There was a dance and everything on their video, and I got into that shit. When I first heard it, I was like, "This is awesome." And then I got to school, and all the guys are like, "New Kids, that's girl stuff. That's lame." So I'm like, "Oh yeah, it is lame." So
see, my first boy band was Boys to Men. They were actually supposed to be in my first concert too. Them and Montel Jordan, but one of the guys got in some like car accident or something. That's I think why he ended up with a cane. I don't know, but I had tickets to Boys to Men in second grade, and I never went to the show.
That's a shame.
Some great songs.
I think I saw Montel Jordan at some 90s like throwback thing with the Young MC and Rod Bass. That was pretty awesome.
There you go. Wait, do you remember being like a young kid? Wait, like when you first heard "I'll Make Love to You," like did your body physically respond to that? Did you feel new things?
Shape. That was my coming of age. Absolutely, yeah. How could you not? The tender sounds of, especially when the guys started talking in the bridge. That always gets me. Yeah.
Yeah, you're in the backseat of your parents' car, and that comes on the radio, and all of a sudden you're getting tingles in places you're not used to. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, Steve, are all your
Steve,
are all your this is why you're a grandfather.
There's too many people talking.
It doesn't matter.
Steve, are all your friends stoners? Is that how you befriend people?
Honestly, no. A couple are, but like I honestly don't have a big circle of friends. I got like one buddy really that I got some friends, but I've got like I grew up with a lot of buddies. I didn't have a lot of like friends, right? And I used
what's the difference?
How you talk, like how deep you go when it comes to like you guys were talking earlier about surface level conversations. Oh, hey, how's it going? Blah blah blah. Shake hands, hugs, talk about what you're doing, what your day's like, and blah blah blah. But not to sit down and really have real in-depth talks, like how are you actually doing? It's all like you were saying. So yeah, I do look at buddies, and then there's friends. Right now, it's like I'd say I have like I don't know. Like I said, I used to party a lot. So then when I had to separate from all that world, it's kind of like the friends went away. So then I had to do a lot of lifestyle change. I didn't have a lot of buddies, and then I went to college when I was like 30. And first day, I'm standing in line. I don't know. He might be in the listening actually right now. But first day, I'm standing in line, and this guy comes up while I'm waiting for a hot dog, and he just is like, "I saw you in class." He's like, "Can I hang out with you? Because I feel awkward." And I'm like, "Yeah, all right." And I mean, I think it's been about 15 years. We're still like, and we are friends, and that's exactly how that friendship started. And we talk about deep, deep stuff, so it's pretty cool.
Well, aren't awkward situations nice for that? They're almost a prompt for us to make those connections.
Yeah, two awkward people came together.
So be.
But
awkward.
I respect that guy for doing that. I mean, he was feeling some sort of way. He wanted to connect, and he told the truth.
Yeah, and he had a lot more balls than I did at that point in my life.
So, at least for me, when we're 1 in 10 of a conversation like this is to have us really consider. Are friendships important to us? And if yes, how so? And if we're desiring more, well, then maybe it is our responsibility to actually work at it, even if that means that it might be awkward at times or uncomfortable at times. Not unlike dating. If you want a partner, then you got to work for it, and no different than friendships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's something where I have a hard time. I'm really bad at like remembering to keep in contact with people and stuff like that. I just kind of, my wife every once in a while will be like, did you text so-and-so? Have you text so-and-so lately? It's like, no, you're right. I should right now. So it's like, I've always been a bit of a loner because my, it's like what you were talking about way earlier about not being ashamed of your hobbies and stuff. When I was like growing up, I was. It's like you couldn't be a wrestling fan and without like being like ostracized at school. You couldn't be a comic book guy. You couldn't be into Star Wars. You were made fun of. So I had to I lived this like sheltered life where all that stuff was kind of like closeted. So I never really felt like I connected to anybody growing up. And then all of a sudden everything, it's funny now because all the stuff that I used to hide from is now like the cool stuff, right? When it comes to Marvel and everything else. But yeah, for a while it was hard to connect like that because you just didn't have that. You didn't feel comfortable enough to like come out like that. So.
I have a question about that, Steve. Was your high school kind of a small community? Because like I picture my own sort of secondary school experience, and the one that gets depicted on American TV shows a lot is that there's the jocks, the nerds, these kind of stereotypical groups, the people who are into music, the goths, whatever, and this is all era dependent as well, of course. Mm-hmm. But me and my wrestling fan friends were not the majority of the school, I wouldn't have thought. And that was probably separate from the rugby team, who were more into kind of like we're the jock guys, or or the AV club types. So was it the size of the community, or just happened to be no one much else at the school was really into wrestling or comic books? Or
I mean, I'm in a smaller city than it was small at the time. It's bigger now, but. Yeah, it could have been a lot of that, and everything was like you were saying. Like everything was divided into music. Everything was about music or some sports. My school wasn't very sports oriented, so there wasn't a lot of that. But there was a certain amount of jocks. But everything was like, were you into hip hop or were you heavy metal? Or were you into punk or and that's what it was back then. And yeah, you didn't really fraternize outside of that. So then you get a smaller school, and then you get this like subsection where it's like I hang out with these people that listen to like this music, right? And it's this like, so yeah, and then you got to find people that like the things you like within that subsection as well. So yeah, I guess I never really found wrestling friends. I had one buddy who was kind of into it. He would come with me to like pizza places to watch pay-per-views and stuff, but that was pretty much it.
Wait, did you go to pizza places to watch pay-per-views? Was that a Canadian thing?
No. Pizza place
Delight
pay-per-view?
Do you remember Pizza Delight?
I don't think we had
Pizza Delight used to do all-you-can-eat pizza, and then you pay a certain amount of money to watch wrestling. Like,
is that legal?
That's cool.
It was back then. I think it was anyway. I don't know.
I've never heard of Pizza Delight. Is that like a... Did they have
There's
that in
still
Toronto?
One in Grand Bend. There's one in Grand Bend still. I don't know where else they're having.
Where did you go to Pizza Delight?
It was in Cambridge, Ontario.
I guess I don't know if we had those in Scarborough. Pizza Delight. Is it good?
It was a chain. No, it wasn't. But it was all you can eat pizza. So it's like
it can't be good then.
No, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't amazing.
But
it
good
was very Ontario-centric.
The only place that does that locally here now, you guys are probably familiar with Jimmy's Famous Seafood.
No.
They're very involved in wrestling community, and so all the pay-per-views they have events. It's ticketed, but they also have just wrestling trivia nights and things like that. And like if I was someone trying to connect socially with people, especially through wrestling, like I would certainly go there. One of the things that I love so much about wrestling, especially when I was working at Ring of Honor, because I was really experiencing it all through, I was trying my best through like our fans' eyes just to develop empathy for them. And what I would notice is that like these mostly men, they come alive at these shows, like because they feel more permission to express this like vitality or enthusiasm that they hold within about pro wrestling. And it's easier. I mean, it's a more authentic version of who that person is, but then you're around other people where like, again, you're finding your tribe of people. Um, uh, I just keep coming to this because I speak with people every day who struggle with this stuff, and this stuff is so important that we're talking about, like feeling, accepting who we are, affirming who we are in the ways that feel best for us, that in the ways that make us feel most alive, and then actually being able to connect that with other people. Like, we need people. One of the reasons why this friendship topic is so important is because as human beings, we are biologically wired to need relationships. Some people are like, I'm loners, and but it's like, or I can just be alone. I don't need a relationship. And like, I would check that person hard of like, is that most optimal for you? Maybe depending on your life experiences, you've learned that this is maybe what you believe is the best way to keep yourself protected and out of potential future harm. But human beings are not the strongest. We're not the fastest. We've evolved and survived and thrived because we're tribal beings. And so it is inherently baked into us that we need people. We need to feel connected. And yeah, romantic relationships are great. Family is great. Kids are great. Work relationships, whatever. But I just think this topic of friendship, especially because like we can choose our friends. We can't choose who like our child is going to be. We can't choose who our mother is, but we can choose our friendships. And honestly, for me, like, I need friends to be able to talk to them about my romantic relationship or about my family life. Like, not everything is meant for my girlfriend. Not everything is meant for my brother or my father. So I realized I just got on a soapbox about the topic. But I just want to express this and like why I think this conversation is worth having, especially amongst adult men.
Very much so. And can I just add, like, the featured comment that Wai put up there during that from Jeff, which was, you know, that there's, yes, it's up at the moment. For listeners, it says, a lesson I've recently learned is that friends you only see in certain space, whether it's concerts, sporting events, or in my case, movie theaters, that you don't see in other contexts. And then he goes into all caps, still are your friends. And I agree with that. There's maybe not just one, you know, it goes to what Jordan's talking about. There are various tribes, and in my case, you know, one of those, and this is where I get super nerdy, is like a Trekkie. I've been to one or two of the sort of Trek conventions that they have in Birmingham in England, where everyone dresses up and you get Klingons speaking in Klingon and all of that. And it's absolutely live long and prosper, Steve Roseweed. But it's super nerdy, it's super niche. But those people do probably fall into the buddy category of what you were talking about, Steve. They're not, but great fun people to know. And then there's wrestling friends I've had since college. And I don't know, you can pigeon them into all sorts of, it's just, I'm laughing because Joycey's calling me a nerd in the chat, in the live chat. But, you know, you can pigeonhole these people however you want. But yeah, it's just belonging, a sense of belonging. We talked earlier about the jiu-jitsu thing, and it brought back to mind the discussion that you had with your former instructor, Roman, which was like a 2.5-hour chat about life and stuff, which I'm guessing you can answer this, of course, you probably didn't have in the confines of the gym, you know, whenever you were training with them.
That conversation,
But
no,
clearly,
absolutely not. No, because you're there for a defined purpose, and once that purpose is fulfilled, I mean, I've seen, you know, and I've actually developed like, you know, close relationships out of those circumstances. But it's not as likely, not as often, especially when people are on a schedule and they're busy and they're on a clock, and you only have so much time to kind of foster those sort of relationships and conversations. Just like sorry, go ahead.
So just to say, to the point of that comment, yeah, I think it's helpful to affirm maybe quote unquote friends that we have that maybe we don't always think of as friends. And maybe these are people where perhaps you might think of them more as buddies or acquaintances. But perhaps potential's there. So when I moved to the city for the first time, I lived alone, and I knew I didn't want to spend that much time alone. So I went on Facebook or went through my phone, and I was like, who's within walking distance? And most of them were acquaintances. Maybe I've hung out with once one-on-one, but I reached out to these people. Hey, I just moved to the neighborhood. Would you want to get coffee? And most of those people, maybe I hung out with them one-on-one that one time. But some of them, it developed into something more. Again, not unlike dating. So example, Steve, I consider you a friend. I don't know really shit about you besides you're into wrestling and now Star Wars, and like you're a grandfather and the weed, of course. But we've had some interactions, like just commenting on Instagram stories, and obviously you frequent this show and in the Discord and things like that. But like, gun to my head, are you my friend? Fuck yeah, you're my friend. And if I'm ever at a point where I feel like I'm desiring more friendship in general, then you're probably on that list of like a handful of people that, let me reach out to Steve Grows Weed and see what the fuck he's actually all about. And like, that's a great thing for me to have. And again, I don't know. I could take, just like Neil took the shot. Hey, Jordan, you want to like chat? Okay, let's see what happens. I could do that with you, Steve, or you could do that with me. And we get on the phone, we chat for 30 minutes and we realize, nice guy, but like, I don't really need to do that again for a good while. Or maybe like, that was really energizing. Like, let's do that sooner than later. And why not? So all that to say, maybe if people are sitting there thinking like, I don't know where to start, maybe you do have connections that are just seeds, perhaps, that have been planted and that you really don't even realize that, maybe if you do something about it, like water it or whatever, like maybe there is something there to grow. And it's not like you're starting from scratch.
Yeah.
If you want
Oh, God.
Well,
yes,
I was
of
gonna
course.
say, like, that's being buddies is great too. Like, and that could all be all you want out of that relationship.
Right. The point being, if we're asking ourselves, I have a desire for more connection. I have a desire for more socialization or for less just surface level internet message board type friendships.
Yeah.
I came to like post wrestling and the law before that, like, because I had a void when it came to like wrestling fandom. I didn't have that person to talk. I didn't have anybody that gave me their opinions. And at first it was just like audio wise, like I got to hear you guys' opinions and I got to, and then now it's starting to develop into this. And this is super cool. And like this show specifically, like really like spoke to me. And that's why you see me here more than anywhere else. But yeah, that's, other podcasts too. I've done that. And like, that's kind of what got me into podcasts, was that I was looking for other opinions about things I was into that other people I knew in my personal life didn't necessarily care about. Right. So,
Steve, thank you so much for always participating and for the kind words and
cheers,
and for growing whatever you grow. Let's go.
And if I was in Disney World and I saw a guy walking around with a Wai Ting shirt, I'd walk up and say hi to him.
Oh yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yes. Thank you so much, Steve.
Right, cheers,
Talk to you
guys.
soon. Hey, we have a couple more calls here to get to. And of course, New Jersey, you are on the wellness policy.
Hello? Hey, what's
Brandon,
up?
Brandon, I have a heart out. What's going on, man?
Hey, man.
Brandon, are you
Come on.
La Flan LeBlanca, what's going on? Happy birthday, man.
Thanks.
What?
Thanks, dude. Thanks, Brand.
What does that mean?
Flan LeBlanc. I don't know. I just go along with what Brandon says.
White Bronco.
He told
man.
everyone I was
La Flan LeBlanca.
57
You never
today.
heard of La Flan LeBlanca? It's La Flan LeBlanca.
Okay.
No idea. I'm
I
sorry.
had an aunt named Blanca, and she hit me also with a chancla. Anyway, It's just, I just want to say hello. And when I was coming up as a youth, I was a loner, and I discovered my friends through wrestling also, like in high school, and it was my buddy Steve. It was during the NWO era, and he initiated. He was like, "Oh, are you a fan?" I was like, "Yeah, I've been a fan for a long time. WCW, Jim Crockett Promotions, NWA, stuff like that." And he was like, "Yeah, what about the NWO?" I was like, "Yeah, they're cool." He was like, "Would you like to hang out? Talk wrestling?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, sure." I was like, "Okay." He was like, "Okay, well, in order to do that, you have to get powerbombed through this table." I was like, "Powerbomb through a table? That's how you become friends?" And he was like, "Yeah, that's how we become friends." And him and my buddy Juan, they agreed. And I was like, "Oh man, really? All right, man, I'll take the bump." So they powerbombed me to the table, and we became friends. And we went to ECW shows, the night where New Jack threatened me and stuff like that. They were there too with my brother, and it was a lifelong friendship to this day. And along with posts and stuff like that, it's crazy.
Okay.
A story we can all relate to.
Where was the table? What kind of table?
It was like it wasn't a New Japan table. It was a larger table. In America, we have larger tables than those middle school tables that New Japan wrestlers use. But it was a decent size.
Jordan, would you recommend this method of trying to make new friends?
No, I mean you get arrested.
But I actually do relate. I think it was a sign of the times, we could say.
Yeah, it was
power bomb through a table.
It was like a balsa wood type of material too, so it wasn't that hard of a table. So I took the bump well, but I was high in the air. This guy was a large gentleman. Steve was about like 6'1". He was a real good football player. He played guard, and yeah, I took the bump. I sold it well. Took the bump, and as a matter of fact, they were pretty popular, and they were doing like backyard wrestling at the time, and they needed someone to participate, a good hand. So I guess I was a good hired hand, and I met some chicks during that. It was a real social event. Those backyard wrestling events.
Brandon, what's the nature of your friendship with Steve currently?
We're not friends anymore.
What did he defect to a different federation?
No, he defected to a different country to live an unruly lifestyle.
Do you have a means of connection to him though, if you needed to?
I mean, through Facebook Messenger and I mean, like everybody else, right? Wai?
I'd encourage you to reach out today and be like, "Hey, Steve, just want to let you know I was on a pro wrestling podcast today, live on YouTube about friendship, and brought up the table spot."
You ever been powerbombed through a table?
No. I've been hit with steel chairs unprotected. I've gotten the flash paper in the face. I've been trained as a pro wrestler as a child, but I never went through a table.
You said flash paper. Was it reversible flash or was it?
I don't know. I was 14, and it was highly suspect that my parents were paying me for to do this. But we didn't get that technical.
So yeah, you guys talk about fandom of pro wrestling. I was closeted for a while through as you got older. I didn't want to tell people like I still watch this stuff and like that. And then it was funny. One of my coworkers discovered that I was a fan through my weird Instagram post, and he was like, "Oh, you still follow that shit?" I was like, "Yeah." I mean,
hold on a second. What would you have been afraid of people thinking about you?
I mean, just stupid ridicule and how you should outgrow that fandom and stuff like that.
The amount of random bullshit that you post, like people, you don't think people would make any sort of judgment just based off of
100%.
So then, what is there to care about when it comes to a little professional wrestling?
Now, this was like 5-6 years ago. I mean, it kind of bothered me when I was still in my antisocial.
Because you come across as somebody who I don't think would care at all. About
I don't care
what people
anymore.
thought.
No, I mean, when I came over to the second event in Toronto, that before the pandemic, I wasn't even like. If I talk to that guy now, I'd be amazed how much growth that I went through because I never travel anywhere alone.
I think Brandon is actually a really great example of somebody who's not afraid to reach out and incessantly bother somebody into a friendship, because that's exactly what he's done.
Get
with
bullied
me.
into.
and I feel like a good chunk of us, including John Pollock, who is not easy to get close to. I could say from my personal experience even. So it's a tactic that has seemingly worked, and you know what, I often enjoy my interactions at Brandon at all hours of the evening.
It's amazing what an Eric Watts picture could get you with John Pollock. Get you 5 minutes of your time.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Brandon, as always. For
I love you guys. You
being
guys do yeoman's work on this podcast, and continued success. I love you guys.
Love you too,
Friend.
dude. Thank you.
Thanks. Hey, let's close things off here with Joycey. Adam Joyce, welcome to the show.
Whoa.
Joycey,
Are you there?
First time caller?
You might be muted.
First time, long time. Sorry, guys.
What's
you
up,
doing?
man?
I'm doing well. I'm just, I have to try and now follow Brandon, which is going to be like the hardest thing in the world to do. But considering I suggested this show, maybe I should have called in.
Much appreciated. Why did you suggest this topic?
Well, I guess when I suggested this topic at first, I was about 1 month into fatherhood and I hadn't left the house in 4 weeks, and I was about ready to talk to anybody I could. So a friend would have been very much appreciated at that time, but things are going very well.
Have your relationships, have they recovered? I guess you could say, or like, have you been able to sort of like, how have you been able to overcome that?
I think they've actually gotten very good especially with friends of mine that have already been fathers that we may have lost contact with, not purposely, but just through them being so busy. I think now that we are both fathers, we're texting more often, or even calling people on the phone, which is something we hadn't done in a long time, just to exchange, hey, what happens at 6 weeks old? What should I be looking out for with my baby at 6 weeks old? And you've gone through this. Let's share stories. I think having a kid has improved a lot of those relationships that I have.
That's great. It's awesome that you have that sort of network. I often just defer to my wife when I have questions like that, or at this point, like Chat GPT, will probably give you a pretty good answer too. But it's great that you kind of have that network and that you've been able to navigate it, but in using sort of like your newfound role to sort of your advantage. Do you? So the problem's solved, right? You don't have any sort of other questions or anything.
Now, one of the other things I was going to bring up when I suggested this was I was trying to think at the time, like looking back on when was the last time I made a friend. And I'm very fortunate that I have a great group of friends, but most of my friends are the ones I made in high school, which was 17, 18 years ago at this stage. And I don't know when I've made a great friend since. I would consider my wife my last great friend that I have met. But throughout the pandemic times especially, I got online more often and I started to meet more people through the Discord and places like that. And I've become very friendly with a lot of people, but I don't know if, and I want to get your guys' opinion on this, is people you meet online but you don't have real, quote unquote, real relationships with. Do you find it easy to call people like that your friend, or are they more of an online relationship you've built with someone?
It depends
I
on
do,
like.
and
Go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, and I just want to say how offended I am that Adam thinks I'm not a friend. That's shocking. We share the Bellator mania and all of that, but what happened to us?
I
Joycey?
guess that's why I'm asking, Neil, because like if I just said you are my friend, and you said friend, I don't know if like if you reacted badly to that, I don't know how I would react to that if you said we're not friends, we've never met.
I completely understand what you're saying. I would say yes, we are friends, but there's room to deepen that friendship. And then maybe that's on me and that's on you to kind of, yeah, I mean, I don't know how many siblings you have, and I'm sure you don't know that about me. And there's, you know, there's levels of friendship. I'm certainly drawn to you in a platonic way. You know what I mean? And fond of you and find you very funny, which is something we haven't really touched on here. I think one of the great connective tissues of a good friendship is shared humor as well. And you've got that in spades. But I really do take your point that online friends, sometimes it can be all a bit surface level, all a bit jokey, and maybe there's room there for more digging and more kind of, well, let's, you know, you live down the road from me effectively. We should meet up, you know. And of course, we will be later in February for Bellator in Dublin. So
That's right.
I think
I'm interested to hear what the others say.
Well,
Sorry,
almost
Jordan.
I don't know if it's an inverse, but just an interesting like comparison point. You guys are talking about, it sounds like the two of you have some sort of like regular contact, maybe a bit more surface level, let's just say, whether it's through text or just the nature of your conversations. But Neal, in that article that you referenced in the show description that I read earlier, it was saying that a lot of people consider like really close friends people that they've been friends with the longest, but they're not necessarily in constant contact with them. But they feel like if it's someone that where they actually need some support or someone to talk to, they can always rely on. So again, it just depends on how we define these things. And we don't have to necessarily define these things of, well, is this person a friend or not? Like, does it matter? Maybe not really. It's just what matters, I think, is what we want. Like what kind of connection we're desiring, whether it's more people or it's going deeper with less people. And then what do we do about it once we're more aware of what we're desiring in any given moment? Again, like Steve grows weed. Is he my friend? Sure. Like he's my fucking friend, but maybe someone else wouldn't say, oh, that's more of an acquaintance, but like, does it matter to define this? I don't really think so.
I guess I just go back to wondering what exactly is the difference between somebody that I meet on an internet chat room talking about pro wrestling versus my colleague that I will, you know, see every day to chat about professional wrestling. I feel like we don't hesitate to talk about our real life colleagues that we have a similar conversation with as a friend, as opposed to just because it's text based that somehow it makes that relationship different. I don't know.
Agreed. No. I think I've developed many what I'd consider friendships, mostly through text based. Now I am someone that will prefer to just get on the phone or FaceTime, especially if I can't meet them in person. Just because obviously text, there's a lot that you can't experience or communicate. No different than like a lot of people that I work with people and they're like, yeah, I have friends but our friendship, like I just play games with them. And so online, so they're not seeing each other. They're not really talking about personal stuff, but it's a friendship. They meet every week and they're playing games and they're having fun and teamwork and all that. And I'd say that's only an issue if they're saying I'm desiring more and I'm not getting more out of it. But yeah, that's the great thing about the internet is it's allowed us to find friends and develop friendships like in all kinds of different ways. It's weird. I don't know most of my neighbors, but I know a lot of people that live in Canada.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Adam Joyce, for the recommendation of topic and for calling in. Hope you call back soon.
Will do. And let me just say happy birthday to my friend, Neal Flanagan.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Joyce.
What are you gonna do? How are you gonna celebrate the rest of the birthday, Neal?
I'm a bore way of the highest order. It's 5 to 10 p.m., so I'll probably have a cup of tea and some biscuits and see what's on television.
Sounds like a lovely way to celebrate. Love it.
I'm past the era
Jordan?
of going to the club, so at least on a Thursday night.
As are you both of us, Jordan. Will club enough for all of us, I'm sure. What are we here to talk about next month? Do we know?
No, I will put this out publicly. I want to be more intentional, and I'll put this on me. I want to talk to more people that work in professional wrestling, whether it's about their own journey of wellness, mental health, etc., but also specifically their experiences and what they might be looking for more of, and so on, as it relates to well-being, mental health in pro wrestling. So my intention is to connect with some people that I know within the space and see if they want to have more public conversations about that.
Okay, so maybe a guest, maybe not. We'll find out in the weeks ahead, and we will let everybody know on all of our post wrestling podcasts, I'm sure. So, but thank you, Neal, thank you, Jordan, for joining us, and thank you to all of you guys that are in the chat room, either watching us live or if you're listening to this after the fact. Thank you guys. Leave a comment either in the Discord, postwrestling.com/Discord, or forum.postwrestling.com, or however you want to reach us. At Neal Flanagan is where you can find him on Twitter. At Jordan Beatwell is where you can find Jordan on Twitter, and at Way0937. Until next time.
Wait. No, I'm gonna take us out, Way. I apologize for cutting you off. But
Sorry.
It is Neal's birthday. So let's honor that. And in the spirit of Boys to Men, let me just say to you, Neal, close your eyes, make a wish, and blow out the candlelight. For tonight is just your night. We're gonna celebrate all through the night. I'll make love to you. Happy birthday, Neal.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Goodbye.